In this video, I wanted to talk about the importance of the side build. Little builds like this. The idea being that for my 2009 Barra Magna expansion project, I swear I'm going to give it a better name at some point, but I have these slots that I want to fill, right? Like Agori, Glatorian, vehicles, creatures, right? And so I've set aside these slots in terms of context in accordance to like 2009, right? In 2009, we got the original Glatorian sets, of which there were 6. We also got the Glatorian Legends, 6 more sets. That's pretty typical of a year's worth of Bionicle. And you'll notice that when I said I was going to be making this, I said I was making a year's worth of Bionicle, but only 9 sets, not 12. Why is that? Well, I'm treating this year a little bit differently. Part of the reason is to give it something unique, a different quality than years prior. Though there will be 9 Glatorian canister sets rather than being released in waves, the idea is that they would be released all at once. 9 sets to fill the shelf instead of 6 at a time. So how do I make up for those other 3 Glatorian figures? Well, the idea is to include them with the vehicles, the box sets, because 2009 introduced 5 vehicle sets and 2 Titans, let's just call it, that being Tuma and the Firu and Skirmix set. The idea is that my world, my project, would introduce 10 box sets total. I know I've been saying 9, but that was not including the Sky Tyrant, the big old dragon back there. He's kind of all on his own because A, he is a dragon, not a dinosaur, and B, because he would include a rider. So essentially he is filling the role of Tuma from the previous year, the big bad, if you want to call it that. But the idea is that each of these box sets, or many of them, would also include side builds, some of those being Glatorian as pilots of vehicles, or Agori as pilots of vehicles. Some of which being small creatures like this, which I call the Stingtail Pterodactyl. I know, silly name. Thing is, maybe it's a little bit far-fetched because it has a Thonax launcher on a tail, right? But the nice part about all of this is that this is fantasy, right? We get to kind of make this up as we go. And it's also a new world on top of that. So I figure rather than trying to stray away from fantasy and make things super realistic all of the time, lean into it a little bit. That's part of the idea from the last video where I talked about the straddle beast, and it's part of what I want to do here as well. I talk about that, I mention that specifically because that build in and of itself is more than one item, right? Though it is filling one of my ground vehicle slots, it includes a creature. One of the reasons I like this so much is because it adds to the world building of 2009. I've mentioned this in the previous video, so I'm not going to go over it too much here, but I think it's interesting to sort of play things out in this way, right? 3 dinosaurs is cool, but is 3 dinosaurs enough to really fill out the world? Not necessarily. However, I can't justify a dinosaur build like this in its own, box set. It's 36 pieces, that's not much. But as a side build, as something to pair alongside a vehicle or another platform, I think it's wonderful. The same thing with the glider as well, which is 35 pieces, right? So these are filling very specific roles. And I love this as a concept. So I think there is a power in having things that are side builds. The vehicles have been doing it for Bionicle for, well, since their inception, really. Maybe outside of the Exo Toa, not including anything with itself. But I find this as an opportunity to just experiment and have fun with it. The character and the creature in the box set don't even necessarily need to affiliate with each other, because at the same time, I could just as easily call these 2 items packaged together a box set. Would it be a terribly exciting one? No, of course not. But do they each offer something interesting? I think so. So the idea here is to just round out this world, flesh it out more, to inspire other creators, to inspire this version of this world that I came up with, which is not canon or anything. It's not intended to be, but it's just something unique, something all its own. It's one reason why I like the straddle beast idea the way as much as I do, because it's so different from vehicles that we had seen before in Bionicle. There's only so much ground I think you can cover making vehicles, but when you inspire that vehicle to perform a specific task, well, now suddenly it becomes something different. Because here's the thing. 2009 Bionicle has this sort of Mad Max aesthetic to it, where a very barren, scrappy world, which I want to lean into, and I want to add to it more, to add more depth, add more color. But also, at the end of the day, if I think about it, how many vehicles can I make that are scrappy, that don't just start to step on each other's feet, to retread the same path, if you want to make a car pun about it, I guess, I don't know, or analogy about it. Anyway, so I find this as such a fascinating idea because we have sets already like the Thornatus, like the Scopio, which are both very interesting. One is a land-based vehicle with wheels. The other one is a land-based vehicle with treads that turns into a creature-looking thing. And so those things have been done. It's not to say that I can't do them myself, but why would I want to rewalk the same path? So that's really everything on all of that. That's a very pedantic sentence. Suffice to say, the idea of something like the Straddle Beast, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can watch the video previous to this one. It's definitely one I'd recommend if you're following along with this sort of brainstorming session that I've been on perpetually for like the last week now. But the reason I like that set as much as I do is because it fills a role similar to the Baroness set, yet it's completely different. And where the Baroness implies that there are creatures on this world and there are chariots pulled by creatures, and that these chariots have been outfitted with like war or battle equipment, right? This starts to imply that there are creatures on this world that are good at harvesting these Thornax, that have adapted to do so because this is a barren land and the Thornax are fruit, right? So it just makes sense that there'd be an animal specifically there to consume that fruit. Would the characters of this world then take advantage of that? I think so. Just as much as humans take advantage of animals' abilities to pull heavy things to create plows, which is why I made that analogy as well. I think that it's exciting because it's not just a creature and a vehicle, but there's a connection there that's deeper. And so with things like side builds like this, even though my box sets have set out to make 3 dinosaurs, it doesn't mean I have to have 3, right? This is a 4th, if you want to call it that. And again, does it look like a pterodactyl? Not 100%. It's not supposed to. But that's part of the charm, right? This is a fantasy world. The Skirmix up there has a big hole in its mouth because of the weird jaw on it. It's lovely, and it's cool use of those parts. And does a T-Rex have any of that? I don't know. So really cool stuff either way. I'm super happy with how this has been going. I went into into Studio earlier today and actually separated out all of the actual parts from 2009, whether they were new molds, unique new molds, recolors, etc. And I got a decent amount. It wasn't quite as many as 2007, which were the numbers that I was going for, although I think they still kind of round out to be about the same, because 2009 doesn't have as many unique molds, but I think it might have more recolors in general. And what I ended up getting was like 46 new unique molds that were made for the year 2009, 58 unique recolors, and then 24 recolors of those new molds as well. It's a very prevalent year, 128 new pieces, total pieces we didn't have before. And it's really exciting because it gives me a number for each of these different aspects that I can sort of work with. It doesn't mean I have to hit those numbers exact, doesn't mean I can't go over or under, of course. At the end of the day, it's my project, But the idea of this project, the caveat of it, because I could very easily make sets made of 100% unique pieces and build my own, but that's not where the fun is to it in it to me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, one thing I did was I went over all of these sets and I counted up like how many of each. There were technically 14 Glatorian if you count Perditus, if you count Tellerus as a Glatorian. He's kind of a hybrid, but officially he's a Glatorian set. There are 11 Agori sets. That's not counting any of the Star sets, of course, which came out in 2010. And then there's 1 Titan with Tuma. There are 2 creatures with Spigot and Skirmix, and there are 5 vehicles. So those are kind of the numbers I'm working with, except for me, for my project, what I have right now is 9 Glatorian, 9 Agori as canisters. Then there'd be extra Glatorian or extra Agori with the vehicles as well, so it could round out to about the same number. 6 vehicles, 3 creatures at least, and then, well, no, 4 creatures because of the dragon. And the dragon is also kind of filling the Titan role here, but I'll get into that later. And that's not including side builds like this, right? So 3 box set dinosaurs, this is a 4th. That's kind of the point I'm getting at. Anyway, probably dragged this one on a little bit longer than I should have, but you get the point. It's a really exciting project, in all honesty. It's something I haven't really been this excited for a while, and I love that you guys are kind of following along with it as well, because honestly, without all of the input from this community, it wouldn't be where it is. I wouldn't have had the idea of the catapult at all, of the straddle beast at all, because you guys have inspired me more than I've inspired myself, and I love that. I think that that's a unique thing that I didn't think about going into this project. I really thought it was just going to be sort of a self-contained project that would take a couple of days, but it's evolved into kind of this community thing, and I love it. So that's pretty much it for this one. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you're subscribed, but even if you're not, thanks for blending your eyes, I guess. And what was I gonna say? Discord, Instagram, Patreon in the description below if you'd like to check that out and get some perks. And of course, I will see you all in the next one. Take care.